Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm taking you along on a little day trip to Ghent, a beautiful Belgian city full of art, inspiration and cozy corners. We'll first go on a morning walk with Nala and then visit some lovely art and design shops, sketching cafés, and of course I'll show you a few new art supplies I picked up along the way. I've included timestamps in the video, so you can skip sections or jump ahead if you're not interested in every single part of this video. However, I hope you'll just join me on this beautiful artsy day excursion while relaxing or maybe painting. So let's get started. Of course, first things first, and that means taking our little monkey for her morning walk. I was planning on going to a museum in Ghent later that day, so I knew I couldn't take her with me on my day excursion. But don't worry, she stayed at home with my boyfriend, who was working from home that day. So this morning the sun was finally back out and I was just so grateful. It had been grey and raining for weeks, and this was the first day in a long time that the forecast promised sun, and it delivered. Nala was also super excited, as you can see. She doesn't like the rain either. She was so full of joy this morning, so cute. This park where we do most of our walks is gorgeous, and especially in the morning it's just so beautiful, the perfect way to start your day. We adopted Nala about 9 months ago now, and one of the many great things she has brought to our lives is being forced to go for walks every day. Even when the weather is bad and the motivation is low, as soon as you're actually outside, it just feels so good. And I've been observing nature and the changing seasons more closely than ever before. Also, as an artist, there's so much inspiration to be taken from nature, of course. I've taken so many pictures on these walks. I love all the textures and colors, observing the light and the shadows, and all kinds of other little details, like all the mushrooms that are sprouting everywhere in the park this autumn. Anyway, it's time to go back. Close to the exit of the park there are these tree stumps. We've been enjoying doing these little agility exercises with Nala, where she has to jump on tree stumps. We call it parkour, in reference to that hilarious scene from The Office, and it always makes me laugh. So I wanted to bring some art materials on my excursion, of course. I like to use these kind of transparent pouches that make it easier to find your art supplies. I thought about limiting my materials even more, but I wanted to do this quickly, so I just decided to take all my materials from my limited autumn palette that I've shown you in a previous video. Plus one of these brushes with water and a sharpener, of course. And then I was off. I travel everywhere by public transport, so I had to get a tram to the station and then the train to Ghent. I know that most of the people who watch this channel are not from Belgium, and not even from Europe actually. I have a lot of viewers from the US, and so I thought it would be nice to show you a bit what it looks like in Belgium and in Ghent specifically.
Wij komen aan in Gent Sint-Pieters.
In Liège-Guillemins, les places de première classe se trouvent dans les 3e et 4e voitures. L'espace vélo se trouve Gleis C. Dieser Zug hält in Bruxelles Midi, Bruxelles.
Something I really love about Dutch and Flemish culture is that it is very bike forward. Here you see just a part of the bicycle parking that is part of the train station. And you'll notice that you see people biking in most of the shots I'll show you of this town later. As you might know, Belgium is a special country in the sense that it is trilingual. The city we're going to now is in the Flemish part. This town, Ghent, was founded in the Middle Ages, and you will see later when we reach the city center that it still looks like that a bit. Anyway, I was just walking around, slowly drifting towards the art shop I wanted to check out. On the way, I passed by Flying Tiger, which is a store full of little knickknacks, and I couldn't help myself but to go in. Look at those silly croissant and pretzel ornaments. Anyway, I bought 2 little things that I'll show you later. But first, let's go to the art shop. There's a few different ones here, but I had never been to this one called Lucas Creatief. It was smaller than expected, but they still had all the important and amazing things. Guys, what's better than looking at all these beautiful colors? I will never get sick of this. And I was really happy to see that they had Inktense pencils open stock, which they don't have in my favorite art store back in Brussels. So I selected 4 pencils. And then I also saw this little Sennelier ink shelf. I discovered this ultramarine one, which I had never seen before. And I also restocked the Prussian blue. This is one of my absolute favorite art materials. And I recently finished a bottle. I did a whole video showing you how I love using this for quick portraits. And my profile picture was also made using this. I looked around some more, but I stayed strong and I only got the 4 pencils and the 2 inks. I will show them to you at the end of the video. And by the way, look at the beautiful room this is in. I wanted to find a nice cafe next, but as I was walking, I passed by this little store which revolves all around ceramics and illustration. I mean, I couldn't not go in. It had all these products designed by small regional artists with so much personality. I took quite a few shots here because I just loved how quirky everything was. I love seeing products designed by small artists, items you can actually use every day. I think art isn't something that should just be on the wall. Obviously, everything is designed by someone, but I'm sure you understand what I mean. There's a difference between an IKEA object, for instance, and a little hand-painted mug or a lamp shaped by someone's hands. I saw so many awesome products here, also great prints. It again reminded me that we shouldn't be afraid to express our own style and point of view. That's what makes all these illustrations so charming and wonderful. Maybe not everything is your taste, but everything has a clear point of view and is telling a story. Next, I went to a little coffee shop on the corner where they had these delicious looking pastries. I got myself a cinnamon croissant and a cherry lemon thyme one to bring back home to my boyfriend. I got myself a nice little spot looking out the window and I decided to do a little sketch. There was this young woman sitting outside of the coffee shop. When I first arrived, she was still by herself and just scrolling on her phone. So I first sketched her at the top of the page, and then I thought I could just add the foreground underneath, which was the bar I was sitting at with my coffee and croissant on it. Since the bar had this cute terrazzo pattern, you know, with those tiny flecks of color in it, I definitely had to include that as well. By the way, if you're wondering why there are these glitches in the matrix, that's because I stabilized this footage with the editing software. I just held my phone in my left hand to film this, so the footage is quite shaky. And sometimes the stabilization leads to these funny effects, especially if there's something else in the corners. And then I still had to try out and also show you one of the things I bought at Flying Tiger earlier. It's this little Fidget octopus. Maybe you've heard of stress balls? This is basically something like that. I've been wanting to get something like this because I'm one of those people who's often fidgeting around with my fingers, picking on my nails and skin, and I think to avoid that it can be good to have something in your hands to play around with. And this octopus just has the most incredible texture. I've never felt anything quite like it. It's obviously squishy, but it's also really firm. Like you have to squeeze really hard to change its shape. I'm using all my strength here, I don't know if you can tell. And it'll bounce back, but really slowly. Then I left and started walking towards my next destination. We're getting closer to the city center now, and you can see that there's lots of churches, squares, and really old-looking buildings. It's obviously not exactly as it was in the Middle Ages, but a lot of these buildings are from that period. They've obviously been taken good care of or renovated and restored. There's actually even a full-on castle in the city center, but I didn't go there this time. Maybe I'll show you a picture. On the way to my next destination, there's also this famous graffiti street, which I thought I could show you quickly. It's basically just a narrow alley full of graffiti. And as you can see, full of tourists too. I mean, I think it's kind of cool, but also a bit overrated if you ask me. Anyway, I kept walking until I reached the next stop, which was this gallery store. Not totally sure what to call it. It's an old church full of antique stuff. I had noticed it on Google Maps, and since I had never been there, I thought I'd go check it out. It's basically full of old objects, anything from porcelain plates, figurines and statues, to paintings, books and jewelry. I had a little stroll around and looked at everything, even trying to maybe find a cool vintage postcard or photo in this box here. But honestly, I couldn't find anything I really liked. I do like cool, random, old stuff, but this place didn't really speak to me. And then when I left, I was in a bit of a conundrum. I had wanted to go to a museum, as I mentioned before, and actually Ghent has a few really great ones. But I didn't really have enough time for that anymore. The initial reason for me to plan this trip to Ghent was actually to pick up a tripod that I bought off someone on a second-hand website. I was supposed to be there at 5 p.m. and at this point it was already 3 or so. So I decided to postpone the museum and instead walk around a bit more and find a nice cafe to spend the remaining time. So I found this very cozy second-hand book cafe. I got myself the soup of the day with a cheese toastie to warm up and then went around to find some interesting books. I landed on some art books, of course, and funnily enough, the first page I opened had a painting of Judith. Maybe you remember I did a whole video about making many different versions of a Klimt painting of her. She's from that famous biblical story where her town was under military siege, and so she decided to seduce the general and cut his head off in the middle of the night. Pretty badass. But I decided to do a little sketch of another famous painting that I'm sure you've seen before. It's Girl with Peonies by Alexei von Jarlensky. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce him. I only used Neocolor tools for this and basically just scribbled away until it was time for me to leave. By the time I was finished, the cafe had completely filled up with people. So I made my way to my last destination to pick up my new old tripod. The evening sun was so beautiful again. Overall, it was just such a gorgeous day. The weather, this excursion, all the many little inspirational things I saw in stores and outside, and coming home with a couple new art supplies, my Fidget Octopus, and of course a new tripod. Nala was very happy to be reunited, which she likes to show by licking my arm. And we spent the evening cuddling and watching Great British Bake Off together. How lucky I am. So, of course, the next day I wanted to show you the art supplies and the tripod I got. First, the two Sennelier inks. I'll let you watch me swatch them. Ultramarine blue first, and then the Prussian blue. The ultramarine looks a lot more purple here in this footage. I will try to color correct it, but if it still looks purple, then let me just say, in reality, it's really more ultramarine. So it's still blue. It's a reddish blue, but still blue. I will show you the details later on. These Sennelier inks can create some amazing textures when you let them do their thing on a wet surface. Next, I'll show you the Inktense pencils. I got iron blue, iron green, burnt orange, and dark chocolate. I really like Inktense pencils. I usually use them with water. But one thing to keep in mind is that some of them change color quite drastically when wet. But they are absolutely gorgeous. As I mentioned earlier, I bought two things at Flying Tiger. One of them, of course, is the Fidget Octopus I already showed you. The other thing is this little box of water reservoir brushes. I've been thinking of getting a few more that I could fill up with ink washes. But when I looked at them in my usual art store, I was reminded that they're quite expensive. So I didn't get any back then. And when I saw this package with 6 brushes for only €4.50, I thought, let me give them a try. They're all different sizes, 3 flat brushes and 3 round ones. So I filled one with ultramarine ink wash, about half ink, half water, and another one with a Prussian blue wash. And I will let you know in the future how they work out. Next, I'll just show you the tripod quickly. With the extended legs, it's almost as tall as me, and I'm pretty tall. This top part can be moved in all the directions. It seems very versatile. And this arm in the middle can be extended up and then pushed out vertically. I don't know all the vocabulary to describe this, but I think you get the idea. I mostly want to use it for my YouTube videos, of course. I've been using a little clamp, which is fine for lots of things, but it's hard filming vertically. you know, from above the sketchbook. Now I did order this pixie clamp to go with it. It's a universal phone clamp you can attach to the tripod so it can hold your phone. It's also by Manfrotto, which is an Italian brand. So yeah, it all seems great, but I can't really tell you too much about my opinion for now, since I haven't really used it yet. For the last part of this video, I'll just show you some silly sketches I made of my new Fidget Octopus, which I've already grown to like very much. I basically just grabbed all my blues from my autumn palette and got to work. Basically, I did a first layer with paint, then I added some Neocolor tools in the still wet areas, and at the end I added some pencil once it was fully dry. And I think this page turned out quite cute. I think it was actually a really good challenge to paint these and to capture the light and the shadows, and especially given that the octopus reshapes itself to its original shape. Anyway, if you've made it all the way to the end of this video, I want to thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and sharing this little excursion with me. Let me know what's been inspiring you lately. Maybe a walk, a shop, a book, or just the autumn. Consider subscribing so you never miss out on my weekly art videos. Let me know if there's anything interesting you saw and what you think of this type of video. Stay creative and take care.